There we go. All right. So we are going to talk today about sales order entry. What we're going to do first is we're going to go through just a very basic sales order entry steps, how to create a sales order, how to allocate, add items, and how to ship and bill. And then after that, we'll go through some of the more obscure buttons that maybe you guys haven't seen before, maybe you have seen before and just have a few questions on. So let's get to it. So, of course, to create a sales order for your customer, the first thing you're going to do is come to the sales order screen. Allow that to open up. When you come into this screen to create a new order, you're going to go ahead and click New on the right side. Now, you can click New on the right side, or we do have a couple of options down below that do correspond to the function keys on your keyboard. F4 and F5 are essentially the same thing as the new key or the new button. I apologize, guys. Can you hear me? Okay. I apologize, guys. Um, so once we're in the sales order screen, we'll click New, or we can press either of these function keys. F4 is going to bring up the customer lookup screen as well as F5. The only difference is F4 will start with the customer number, and F5 will start with the customer name. If you click New, of course, you can click on any of these to look up your customer. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and choose somebody, Dole Produce, for example, and click OK. Once I select a customer, Edible will generate my invoice number for me. And of course, I can also put in an alternate invoice number if I need to. So if I want to keep track of a different invoice number, I can do that. Of course, you'll have your customer listed up here so we know exactly who this in sales order is being created for. And then we can specify what type of order this is as well by selecting a shipment method, whether it's a delivery order, a pickup order, or a drop ship order, which we'll talk about in just a sec. You can also, if you are selling on consignment, if any of you sell on consignment, of course, you can mark this as a consignment order. And the only difference between a consignment order and a normal sales order is before you can ship and bill, you'll have to make sure that the consignment flag is taken off. But that is basically it. What we're in right now is the invoice information tab. The sales order screen is split up into two separate tabs, the invoice information tab and the item detail tab. You can click between these screens, or you can press F8 on your keyboard, and that will flip in between the screens as well. The invoice information tab just has all of your header information. So if you need to enter in a customer PO number, you can go ahead and enter that in. The requested delivery date and time. This, of course, is one of the most important things to make sure you have. It doesn't only control when this order can be seen in different reports and screens, which most of our sales reports and screens in the system are based off of the requested delivery date, but it also affects when the inventory is available. So if I have inventory that's supposed to be received but hasn't been received yet, I will not be able to sell it unless it is received as of or before this date. The ship date can be whatever you want. It does control the shipping screen. So the shipping screen is based off of this ship date. Route and sequence, if you guys keep track of route and sequence, this will pre-populate based off of the customer master file, depending on the date of the order. However, you do always have the ability to manually overwrite as needed. Ship via is something that you can enter in as well. We can link a ship via to an add-on PO. I'm not going to talk about that just yet. We'll go ahead and skip that for now, and we can cycle back to that later. The seller, depending on your settings, can pre-populate. Of course, if you need to change the seller, you can. That, of course, is all based on your options. The sales rep, however, if there is a sales rep linked to this customer, they will pre-populate and it cannot be changed. You can only change a sales rep within the customer master file. Of course, all of this information is just order information, who created, who last modified, who voided. And then, of course, down here is your shipping information. Now, the shipping information is brought over from the customer master file. We have the main address listed here. However, if there is an alternate delivery address that was entered into the customer master file, then we can click on this alternate delivery address button over here on the right side. And this will show you any delivery addresses that you might have for this customer. Right now, I only have the one. As you can see, it is starred as the main. But however, I can change this per order. I can say if this is going to a storage warehouse or anything like that, I can change this address per order. And then, of course, these notes right here, these are just general order notes for this particular order. If you wanted to, you can specify standard terms to pre-populate. Right now, we don't have any standard terms entered into this database. But if you right-click, you can pull up your standard terms and add them in to this order. Any notes entered into this field will print at the bottom of the inventory list. And then over here on the right side are your terms and your order type. All of this can be changed, of course, per order as well. It's brought over from the customer master file, but it can be changed. All right, so that's just the main information right there. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the item details screen so we can see where we add items. Excuse me. The other thing that we'll want to make sure of, other than the requested delivery date, is the warehouse that we're working in. Right now, we only have 2 warehouses in this database. If you're working with multiple warehouses, you'll want to make sure that you choose the correct one because this is going to control your availability as well. So as you can see, I have 2 items that pre-populated into this order. That means that these 2 items for this customer are marked as standard. So your standard items can pre-populate into into any new orders. You do, of course, have the option to specify whether or not you want standard items to pre-populate. You can also set standard items to pre-populate based on the day of the week. All of that is set up under this customer master file. The nice thing about the pre-populating is that I don't have to select them if they are items that are normally purchased from this customer. So I can go ahead and just choose what I want to add. So I'm going to go ahead and add some celery. I'll say I'm adding 5 5-pound bags. Right there, that message that popped up, and I apologize, I skipped that a little bit quick. It was a message basically telling me I did not have enough available quantity. We do have an option to bypass that message. However, it was just up there to let me know, hey, you don't have enough inventory. Edible will allow you to enter in an order quantity, even if you do not have available quantity. The major things you will not be able to ship and bill said order until you have that inventory available. So you can always set this up. It's just a draft, so no worries there. And then, of course, after I put in the order quantity, I will go ahead and put in a unit price without freight. The unit price without freight will pre-populate based on your pricing. Right now, we don't have any pricing set in this system. I do apologize. We'll go ahead and get that set up later on. But any pricing that does populate will show up there. But you do always have the ability to overwrite as needed. So if maybe the wrong price shows up, or as of right now, I've got 0 price showing up, I can go ahead and change that. So let's say it's $10 per bag. Excuse me. All right. And then, of course, as you can see, I have this unallocated column showing up. This is also based off of options. So if you don't have this showing up currently in your system, it's just an option that we need to check. But this will always show me what quantity I have on this order that is not allocated. So right now, I do not have this quantity allocated to a specific lot. And I'm going to go ahead and ignore the turkey. So I'm going to start adding new items to this order. Of course, you can add items 3 different ways. Your F2 button down at the bottom or on the right side, whichever one you want, or of course on your keyboard. You never really have to pick up your mouse if you don't want to. If you hit F2, That's going to bring up your item selection screen. And just like pretty much all of our selection screens in the system, you have the ability to sort and look up by whatever columns you want. You can also go up here and select those the same way. It does pretty much the same thing. Let's say I want to look up some cilantro. So I'm going to go ahead and type in cilantro. I'm pretending I don't see it right there. So let's look up by description there, SIL, and I can filter my list just by typing in the first couple of characters in that description. So I'm going to go ahead and double click and add my cilantro in there. I can also add items through the Shift F2 option. The Shift F2 option is the same exact thing as your inventory list, so the same exact thing as your F2. However, your Shift F2 allows you to see your on-hand available quantities. So that's nice for testing purposes. It's also nice for salespeople who just want to make sure they know what they have at the time of sale. So I can go ahead and select any of these items that I know have inventory, and that'll make things a little bit easier for me. Let's go ahead and select that. And of course, after your items are added, you do have the ability to change the unit of measure if needed. So if you happen to be selling the cilantro or the hot sausage by maybe the each or by the pound, you can go ahead and change those as needed. So I'm going to go ahead and say I'm selling this hot sausage by the each instead of by the case. So I'm going to go ahead and populate that in. Now this cilantro, I know we sold last time we did this training, so it did come in with a price. I believe it was a last price we're using as override. So that came in as the last price. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pop 10 in there. So the major difference, as you see, the other items that we don't have, inventory for are in this unallocated quantity column. But our hot sausage, of course, we do have available quantity, and it automatically allocated. Now, we're going to talk about allocation in just a second, but just to show you, based on our settings right now, I am automatically allocating to the earliest received lot. So it's already picked that up and committed that lot. If ever I wanted to see what lot I'm allocating to or choose the lot that I'm going to allocate to, all I have to do is come over to the right side and click the lots button with the item that I want selected. So here I'm just going to review this hot sausage. I'll click lots, and I can see that I'm allocating to this lot 5002. Here I can see my receive date, my costs, any of vendor information that I might have. I can specify that. I can also change the allocation in here as well. Right now I don't have any more lots, so of course I won't be able to do that. But come in here. So of course, I do the same thing for my cilantro, and I don't have any lots available. It's going to a Z lot, which is essentially just a holding lot in the software. It's saying, we know you have this quantity that you want to send off, but we don't have a lot to pick from yet. So this is just a holding area, essentially. All right. So let's say I'm done with this order. These are the items that I want to send off to this customer. This is what they've requested. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save. Anything that does not have an order quantity or has 0 order quantity, as you can see, was taken out of the list. So for that particular order, I'm only keeping items that I have an order quantity for. So at this point, the order is saved. It's just a draft. I can come back in here and I can do whatever I want with it. I can void it. I can change items. I can remove items. I can add items. Now, excuse me, I can also go ahead and print my documents. Now, before I print my documents, I do want to go through another note option that you have. So I'm going to click Edit. Anytime I want to edit an order, I do have to be in edit mode. So on the right side, I had to click the Edit button. Once I'm in edit mode, I can add my notes or do whatever I need to. Now, there's 2 separate notes that I want to talk about. First one is the item notes down here. So based on the item that you have selected, if you enter in item notes, this is going to be notes that print not only on the invoice, but on the pick ticket as well. So there's really no choice. It's going to print on both. However, we do have an option if you wanted to print picking notes for a line item, but not invoice notes, or vice versa, you can go ahead and choose these document line notes. So let's say for this cilantro, I'm going to go ahead and select to print a document line note. I'll click add, and down here, I'll go ahead and type in the note. And beyond that, I can go ahead and specify which document I want it to print on. So I can print on the invoice, or I can print on the pick ticket, or I can print on both. Now, of course, if you're going to print on both, you might as well just utilize this one down here. But I'm going to go ahead and say print on pick ticket and click OK. All right. And the other thing that I wanted to show you while in edit mode is, let's say your customer knows this item by a different description. Now, there's other options as well. We can specify customer item codes or customer descriptions to print on the invoice when setting up the customer list. However, in this sales order, if this is an item you haven't sold before and you wanted to give them their description, you can go ahead and change it as needed. With this modify description button selected down here, I do have the ability to say, so now I can change it to maybe the way that they know it. And I'll go ahead and click save again. All right, so again, I can print any of my documents from here. Up at the top right, I can print my invoice, my pick ticket, my order confirmation, certain documents that are customer facing, of course, like the invoice and the order confirmation. I also have the ability to email directly to them if I have my email settings set up and a valid customer email set up as well. I don't believe my printer drivers are set up correctly, so if I preview this, I don't think I'm going to give you the full view of it. Let me print a PDF really quick, and I can show you this preview. That's good. I can't type in front of you people. Let's see here. Save. And let's pick up that document. All right. So here, if it'll let me drag it over. There we go. Here is our default invoice. And of course, I will have my, I don't have any notes on here because I did not specify any invoice notes. But if I was previewing the pick ticket, of course, under the cilantro, I would have my new cilantro note. And then, of course, it does have the new description that I put in for this customer. So moving forward, of course, before I can ship and bill this, I have to make sure it's fully allocated. I can see right now this is not fully allocated. So what I'll need to do is make sure I have inventory available. Now, if you have inventory coming in, of course, that's not going to be a problem. Once the order or once the inventory has arrived, you do have the ability to allocate as needed, or you do have the ability to allocate to an open purchase order, again, depending on your settings. From here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and generate a purchase order from this sales order. So if any of you purchase on demand at any point, this is an option that you have. So I'm going to come down here and click generate purchase order. And it's only going to fill in items that have shortages. So it's going to show you your short quantity, and it's going to populate that with your to be ordered. Now I can update this to be ordered quantity to say maybe I don't want to just order for demand. Maybe I can change that to 15 to have a little bit more in stock or anything that I want to do. So let me go and do that. I'm going to go and change that to 20. I'm going to change this to 30 cases. If I know a general unit cost, I can go ahead and enter that in as well. So I'm going to go ahead and enter 5 here, and I'll go ahead and enter in, well, I'm selling that at 28 cents per each. That is cheap sausage. I'll change that. Let's go ahead and do, let's do 10 cases. Or I apologize, cilantro, 670. The other thing that I can do is set in reference to. So if I do not select this option, essentially I'm just creating these general purchase orders to be received. But if I set in reference to this sales order, what's going to happen is once I save this and I generate those purchase orders, these unallocated quantities are going to show up in my allocated column, but they're going to show up in orange, essentially saying I have allocated these to open purchase orders. To set up these purchase orders, what you can also do is you can set up multiple vendors. So if you receive these items from different vendors, you can go and specify those there, and it will generate a purchase order per vendor. So if you select, if you had 5 line items and you selected the same vendor for 2 line items, it will be a single purchase order for those 2 line items. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say a specific vendor. And what I can also do is set this as a drop ship. The only difference between a drop ship and what I'm doing right now is on the purchase order, it's going to print the customer location instead of my warehouse location. So as soon as I know that the inventory has been received by the customer, I can mark it as received in my warehouse and ship and bill in the system. So I'm not going to mark this as a drop ship. I'm just going to go ahead and say generate purchase order. And I have completed my allocation. It's created my purchase order number up here. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and click exit. As I said, it moved over that allocation, but I still have to receive it in order to ship and bill this order. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and come to purchases and receiving inventory. And I'm going to go ahead and receive this purchase order. So I'll click edit, click receive all as ordered and save. All right, so now I have received this inventory. I will have to go ahead and refresh this screen in order to see that allocation being picked up. So I'll just briefly exit and come back in. I'll come back in the item detail screen, and now I can see I'm fully allocated. Excuse me. All right, so if I am completely good, I have picked up all of my inventory, then I can go ahead and ship and bill this order. Now, of course, depending on your process of shipping and billing, you can come straight into the sales shipping screen from the sales menu, or you can go to the shipping screen from the sales order. The major difference is if I come to the shipping screen from the sales order, it's only going to have this sales order. So if you're shipping and billing or trying to ship and bill pretty much up to date, this of course is a great way to do things. Then this is how you would want to do it because you only have to work with one order at a time. However, if you're going to bulk ship and bill orders at the end of the day, then what we recommend is keeping your orders, stacking them up throughout the day, and then at the end of the day, you can come into the shipping screen from the sales menu, and you'll have the ability to look at multiple orders that you've been working on. So just to show you what that looks like, we won't see multiple orders. This is the only one that I believe we have open at the moment. So we won't see multiple orders, but as you can see, we do have more selection criteria to filter this screen. Not only can we select different routes, you'll see all of your routes that you have set up for this date range, but of course you can specify the date range, specify the shipping warehouse, and again, the date range is based on that shipping date for the sales order. You can specify only delivery orders or only pickup orders. But when you come in here, any orders that are marked as selected over on the left side, so anything that has this selection checkbox checked, I have the ability to click any of these buttons down here, and it will affect all of those orders in bulk. So if I wanted to bulk print invoices, this is where I could come. If I wanted to bulk print pick tickets, or even print a consolidated pick ticket so that your pickers are not having to go pick for maybe the same items for multiple orders, they can just go and pick what they need. I can print a consolidated pick ticket from here as well. But from here, of course, the main operation is shipping and billing. Um, in this screen, another great thing is the legend. I can see that I have my invoice printed, which is why my customer is showing up in this pink color. If my pick ticket was printed, of course, my invoice would show up in this teal color. So that's a good indication that all of my documents have been printed and this order is set to go out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark shipped or mark shipped and billed. Uh, the major difference between marking shipped and marking shipped and billed, of course, is your AR. When you mark shipped, it takes the inventory that you have allocated out of the warehouse, but there is no general ledger update. There's no AR update. We still have the ability to edit certain information. However, if I know everything is good and I want to go ahead and make sure a payment is coming to me, then I'm going to go ahead and mark shipped and billed. So I'll click yes. And this is the message I'm looking for. No errors were encountered. If there was any issue in shipping this order, and more often than not, it is an allocation issue, then you would see an error preview show up. So you can preview and actually see not only the specific order that had the issue, but the line item and the reason it couldn't be shipped. So as I said, more often than not, it would show you the line item and the reason would be undercommitted. That is an indication that that item was not fully allocated or not allocated at all. All right. So that is essentially the sales order process. Now, some of the other features that we have for a sales order. I'm going to go ahead and start a new one just so I can show you some of these other features as well. So I'll click new and start a new order. Some of the other options that we have in here are sundry items. So let's say you have a non-inventory charge along with your inventory. So I'm going to go ahead and put in an item really quick. And perfect. For those of you that work with catch weight items or variable weight items, there is another step involved with allocation. So I'm actually glad this popped up. So for those of you who don't know, your catch weight items are variable weight items. Not very many of you probably work with catch weight items, but for anybody who does, allocating a catch weight item has a separate process. You cannot auto allocate a catch weight item. The only thing you can do is manually allocate. And the reason being is we have to keep track of the weight as well as the units leaving. So when I have a catch weight item in here, I do have to come to this lot screen. When I come into this lot screen and I click add line, before I do that, I'm going to specify, do I want to enter in a total weight or a unit weight? So I can specify on the invoice, do I just want them to see total of 10 cases at 400 pounds, or do I want to show them the individual case weights? That, of course, is completely up to you. I'm going to go ahead and go with total weight to not draw out the training. So let's say I'm just going to throw in 450 pounds. Might be totally off, might be wrong, but hey, that's catch weight. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And as long as my allocated quantity, not only my allocated quantity shows green, but my weight changes to a green color, then I know I am completely allocated. But back to what I was saying before with the sundry items. So let's say I have a non-inventory charge to go along with this inventory item. Let's say I have a delivery charge of some kind. I can go ahead and select my sundry item. Of course, these items are set up under code maintenance. And they can be whatever you want, whatever non-inventory charge you might have. So a very common one is, of course, is freight fee. Now, of course, there are two ways to add freight. This freight fee, the way that I'm doing it right now with the sundry item, is just a straight freight charge. It doesn't have anything to do with the line item. This is just me rolling a freight charge onto the customer. So I am charging them $250 for freight. The other way to do a freight charge is this unit freight column. Now, this can be pre-populated if any of you use freight rate schedules, but of course it can be manually overwritten as well. If you wanted the freight charge to be part of the total line price, then you can go ahead and add that in. So if you know that it's $250 and you want to distribute that based on the order quantity, then we'll go ahead and put in $25. So we know it's $25 per case. All right. So that's two ways that you can add freight. Now I'm going to go ahead and just stick with that's delivery quantity. There we go. I'm just going to go ahead and stick with the $250 line freight, and I'll click save. Of course, the wonderful thing about sundry items is there is no need to actually allocate. I can ship and bill this as needed. The other thing on the freight side, or just talking about extra charges, is anytime that you might be charged something. If you are picking up the freight charge for this customer, then what will happen is you'll need to create an add-on PO for sale. So that kind of goes back into the ship via. If you created any ship via under code maintenance, you can link that to an add-on vendor or a freight vendor. So after you've added your ship via and click this freight button, it will take you to the add-on PO for sale screen and have that information auto-populate for you. Now, of course, I don't have anything like that set up yet, so I'm going to go ahead and create from scratch. Excuse me. So I'm going to go ahead and click this add-on PO for sales button here on the right side. And I'm going to go ahead and select my vendor. It already has my item information. So I've got that there already. So I'm just going to go ahead and select my vendor who ships out to me. And I'm just going to say that they ship out. And I'm going to choose my add-on type. So freight out, very common. And I'm also going to choose my total add-on cost. So let's say this is just an offset. I am being charged $250 and I'm rolling the cost over to the customer. So that's exactly how we want to set this up. So I've got $250 total charge, and you can allocate this charge however you wish. You can allocate this charge based on the total weight, the cubic feet, the master count, or the sales price. However you want to, you can choose that and hit select all. And if you have multiple items, it's going to distribute the total amount to each line based on whatever you've chosen. However, you can also manually enter that in as well. If I hit reset, I can go ahead and put in a total add-on cost or a total unit add-on cost. In this case, it would be $25. $25. And I can do that as well. Either way, it's completely up to you. This cost that I'm adding in does not actually affect the landed cost of the item. So what I'm adding in right now does not inherently get included in your gross profit calculation. You can, when we run the gross profit report, we do have the ability to add this to the calculation. But for accounting purposes, it is not inherently included. So I'm going to go ahead and click save and click close. And of course, at any point before I have shipped this order, I can always void. So if I void a sales order, then it just undoes everything. It takes away the items. It does use up the invoice number. The way that edible invoice numbers are set up is nothing can you can't have ununique numbers. There's a much better way of saying that. Each invoice number must be unique. So if I void this, then it's going to use up that invoice number, so I cannot use it again. And it's the same thing with any of the other numbers associated in edible software, purchase order numbers, transfer numbers, anything like that. The other thing that I wanted to show you in here as well, let's pretend that I actually did not have 10 cases of this item available. I only had 8. So if I only had 8 available to ship, what I would do is if I wanted to show my customer, hey, I know you ordered 10, but I only had 8 available, what I can do is click this option, modify delivery quantity or modify deliver quantity. The allocation and what's actually shipped out is based on this field right here, this deliver quantity. So if I change that to 8, it's going to ask me for a catch weight item, it's going to pop up this lot allocation screen and it's going to ask me to update it in here. And let's bring that back down to 385. Now, for a normal item, it would not necessarily pop up the lot allocation screen unless you allocated to multiple lots. If you allocated to multiple lots, it would ask you which one you are pulling from. But if you allocated to one lot and it was a regular item, you can just change that quantity and it will update your allocation automatically. So I'm going to go ahead and click save. And this is just reminding me that I do have an add-on PO. The delivery quantity should automatically update in the add-on PO, but just in case, let's go ahead and check that out. And as we can see, it did automatically update. So just wanted to show that to you. So of course, once we're done, we can go into shipping and billing. Now, a quick note on allocation. Excuse me, one sec. Sorry, throat's getting a little dry. A little note on allocation really quick. As you can see, for a catch weight, I can't auto allocate. Now, when I added my normal item, so my regular item, let me go ahead and add one really quick just so you can see what I'm talking about. If I go ahead and type in 10, if there's enough available quantity, it automatically allocated. This may not be the process for many of you. Many of you may defer allocation, which is perfectly fine. Essentially, what's happening with the defer allocation is much like when you don't have inventory available. It's just putting the quantity to that Z lot. So once you are ready to allocate, you can either do what we have been doing and clicking on that lots button on the right side, or after the order is done, and let me unallocate just so you can see. To change allocation in here, of course, is very simple as well. When you want to remove the allocation from a specific lot, you just right click and you can see that change up here. And then, of course, you can double click in the lot that you want. Go ahead and click OK. And I've basically just unallocated this item. Now, when I am ready to actually allocate this item, if I wanted to allocate on a FIFO basis, so as if it had just come in and auto allocated, I can click this allocate button on the bottom right side. So this will allow you to fully allocate these items on a FIFO basis just for this order. So it has the invoice information already selected. You don't have to do anything else in here. The only other thing that you might want to look at is the auto allocate to open POs. So this, of course, would give you the option to say, I may not have the inventory available, but I know it's coming in. I have a purchase order set up for it, so I can go ahead and do that. But I'm going to go ahead and update. I'm going to click no to preview the report just for now, because I know which lot it's already going to. Now we also have the option under sales to auto allocate as well. Now this option will allow you to auto allocate for multiple sales orders. So if I click this, I have the ability to choose not only through a certain date, I can select individual inventory items that I want to allocate for. So it'll only choose items that are on open sales orders through this date. You can select individual invoice numbers. Excuse me. You can also select individual customers. that you might want to auto allocate for. But as you can see, it's pretty much the same exact options as the other one, but you can specify multiple orders to update through this feature. Another note on auto allocation: anything that is currently allocated will not be updated. So if I added items to this order that were not allocated and I choose to auto allocate, it is not going to update these two items. These are set in stone once they are allocated. As far as an automated feature, you can always come in and manually change them. All right, so let me go ahead and ship and bill this. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ship this just to show you that as I don't have the ability to edit a billed invoice. Of course, an open invoice, I have the ability to edit at any given point. A delivered invoice or a shipped invoice, I do have the ability to edit certain information. So if I come here and click edit, it'll ask me, do I want to reopen? It's not actually reopening it, it's just reopening it technically for editing. Sorry, one sec. But I can go ahead and change certain information such as unit price. Let's say the hot sausage. I forgot to put a price on it. So I definitely don't want to be stuck with selling 10 cases of this sausage and not get paid. So I'm going to go ahead and enter in my price. I can still change some notes or add notes if I wanted to. I can add a customer PO number so I can change certain invoice information. The main things that you cannot change for a delivered invoice are the requested delivery date because it has already been shipped out. And I can't change anything as far as quantity. So I will not be able to change delivery quantity or order quantity. If I needed to take inventory away from this order, if I needed to return inventory, I would have to do an adjust delivered invoice. If I needed to add inventory, let's say I actually sold 12 cases instead of 10. That one is actually an easier fix. I can't add it to the line, but I can go ahead and add that item again. I can go ahead and add the two cases that I need, add the same price, and make sure it's allocated to the same lot, which of course I only have one, so that's good to go. And if I add this item, it will actually reopen this sales order. So it will go ahead and force me to reship and bill the order, even though these items have already technically left. All right, some of the other options down here that I definitely want to show you. If you're not familiar with this one down here, this Control F12, this legend, maybe you've looked at it before and you say, oh, okay, it just shows me the colors in the system and what they mean. It's all well and good, but things have changed. We have actually updated this screen with a lot of cool features, including many of you I know wish that we could remove some of these extraneous columns. I don't need all of this. I don't deal with suggested retail price. I don't deal with document line notes or whatever the case may be. So what I can do is come here and set columns visible. And I can choose which columns I actually want to see in here. So I don't have to worry about all of the extra stuff. I can just deal with the pertinent information for this order. And this is purely for your ease, and it is user remembered. So it depends on which user comes in. They will see the sales order as they need it. The same thing with set buttons visible. Right now, I'm not showing substitutions because I don't deal with substitutions. So I can specify whether or not I want to see that, or I don't need to see bid items or any of that information. So I can choose to remove those. Same thing in the header. I can specify what information I do or don't need to see in the header. such as Incoterms. We may not need to worry about Incoterms since we already have a delivery method. So I can choose to remove that. And then set visible detail. So in here, just this information up here, I can specify what I may or may not want to see. One thing, of course, is total pallets. I may want to be able to enter that in. So if you are missing information or you don't see information in a later version of Edible, come into this Control F12 and you may be surprised at what you may already have. All right. Another option that we do have in here that I want to show you is the copy sales order feature. So the copy sales order feature is really good if you have a standard order from this customer. So if you have a standard order maybe every week or every couple of days, you can actually set the intervals. And when I say every 5 days, they order the same thing, I can go ahead and set as far into the future as I want, however many standard orders they have. And of course, I can change the requested delivery date per order. But when I hit create sales orders, it's going to copy this exact same sales order with these items, these quantities, with these dates. So when it does come time to actually ship and bill this order, I can allocate to whatever lots are available. I can change the prices needed. I can do whatever I want, but the order is there, so I don't have to create one from scratch every single time. All right. And the last feature that is actually more standard, so I apologize I skipped this, is of course the way to look up your orders that you have already done. So right now we have 3 statuses: open, delivered, and billed. Of course, if I wanted to look up all of my open invoices, I can select that and hit this drop down next to the invoice number, and this will show me all of my open sales orders that have not been shipped or billed yet. The same thing with delivered if I wanted to look up my delivered orders. And then, of course, my billed orders, I can select those as well. Now, if I happen to know the invoice number off the top of my head and I didn't want to have to go in and click and select and everything like that, I could very easily hit F7 on my keyboard or F7 down here. And this allows you to look up the invoice based off of the invoice number. Now, you can also look up by the online confirmation number if this happens to be an online order, alternate invoice number, or the customer PO number. So if I wanted to look up invoice number 2, which happens to be a billed order, then I just type in the number. You don't have to type in the leading zeros. Just type in whatever the number is. Click OK and tap enter again, and it will tell you what is the status of this order, but it'll go ahead and select it for you. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select that order that I have been working on and go ahead and reship and bill so I can get those extra 2 cases of sausage out. All right, a couple of other features that you may not know of that are really nice is actually the pricing roadmap, which right now I'm not able to look at just yet because of my settings, and I apologize. But the pricing roadmap is a very nice feature. Essentially, what it allows you to do, and I'll go ahead and pull it up from the pricing menu, but the Control F11 is just a quick hop to it. The pricing roadmap allows you to look up what is the price for that item. Now, right now, I don't have anything set as far as pricing in these orders that I've done, so I don't have them set just yet. But and I can see that based off of the tanned color. Anytime you see a tanned color, it does indicate that this is a manual price. But in this pricing roadmap, I can run for a sales order or for a price list report, and I can select my item. Let's go ahead and look up that cilantro, and I can look up for a certain customer. Now, those screens that I just went into, I had to do because I ran through the pricing roadmap through the actual pricing module. But if I hit that Control F11, it selects that for me. It takes all this into consideration. So when I click Go, I can see what is making up my price for this item. So I don't have to go through and wonder, okay, wait a minute, is this an override? Is this whatever the case may be? Of course, depending on the color of the price that it comes in, you'll be able to know what type of price it is. But in here, you can see that calculation laid out for you. So you can see the cost of the item. You can see if there are any overrides, any markups, anything like that. So it's a very nice screen. Of course, you can also select check your customer's credit history from this screen. Now, of course, there is an option to remove this if you don't want your salespeople to see this. But when you click that check credit button, you do have the ability to show your check credit or your customer's credit history. So it'll show you all of your current sales orders that haven't been paid. It'll show you what they owe, what their credit limit is, what their due dates are, all of that great information. And then, of course, you can print a statement from here as well. All right. Guys, I believe I have almost exhausted. There are still a few features in here that we could go over at any given point, but we're getting to the nitty gritty, and I don't want to take up anybody's time on that. So I'm going to go ahead and stop here. We have covered pretty much the main points of the sales order screen and some of the major features that we've added along through the years. So uh, of course, you can go ahead and send any questions that you have in through that chat window or maybe even email them to us. Again, we have been recording this, so we will go ahead and send this over to you. Thank you guys for coming in today. Thank you for sitting through my spiel and putting up through my dry throat and my coughing. And I hope you guys have a great day. And we will be sending out more of these training invites later on so that we can all go through the system together. Thank you guys. Have a great day.